Hello, and thank you for joining us for another installment of There You Go with Brian. They met in 1935 at a prep school dance. He was 2 years older than her and coming back home from college to spend time with family and friends. He was brash and full of himself. She had come to the dance with a boy she liked, but the cocky older Kennedy, everyone called him Jack, cut in and swept her away on the dance floor. He was tall and too thin, but did have a gawky charm that deep down she found mildly amusing. Before the dance was over, he had propositioned her, but she not only turned him down, she actually laughed out loud. He was taken aback. This crude approach of his usually worked pretty well, but not with Mary. In Massachusetts, everyone knew the Kennedy family. The father, Joseph, had made his money in illegal bootleg whiskey and then furthered the family fortune in the stock market, most likely from insider trading. But the family was going legit, and Joseph had big plans for his sons. One day they might be senators or maybe even presidents. Mary Pinchot Meyer was the daughter of Amos Pinchot and wealthy progressive lawyer Ruth Pickering Pinchot, a writer and social activist. Mary was raised on Park Avenue, educated at the finest schools. She was finished and polished as a young lady should be in the aristocratic circles her family moved in. Her parents always aspired to have their daughter marry a doctor or a lawyer, possibly a head of industry. And while Mary did as she was told and lived up to her parents' expectations, she always had an independent, if not rebellious, streak. At school, she passed her tests, but would get caught smoking in the girls' bathroom. She had excellent style and sense of taste, but would prefer to go without makeup and leave her hair just a little bit messy. She enjoyed the company of a good-looking young man, but given the choice, would always prefer to get lost in a book, more times than not on art history, psychology, or the meaning of life. While Jack and Mary's lives went in different directions, he graduated from Harvard and enlisted in the Navy, serving with honor in World War II in the Pacific, and she graduated from Vassar and went on to marry Cord Meyer, a high-ranking CIA official, in 1945. They never really forgot each other, especially Jack. They would occasionally bump into each other at social events, and even though Mary had 3 children, Jack would still pursue her, especially since he found out that her marriage of almost 12 years was quickly crumbling after the death of her son Michael from a hit-and-run accident. To cope with her grief, Mary turned to her one true lifelong love, art. It was in art that she felt free in expressing who she truly was. Many a day you would find Mary in her studio painting into the early morning hours. She focused on large-scale abstract paintings with bold colors. She also turned to substances that were a bit stronger than her usual martinis and cigarettes. Mary had started to rely on marijuana and even started to experiment with LSD. Her marriage was now officially over. And now, after having several meaningless affairs, she started to find comfort in the friendly voice of Jack Kennedy when he would call her late at night.
Hello?
He had achieved his father's goal for him to become a senator and was now about to become the 35th president of the United States. He was married now with children of his own, but there was no danger of John F. Kennedy winning any awards for faithfulness to his young bride, Jackie. Jack and Mary ended up having many deep and meaningful late-night conversations. She was definitely a forerunner to the peace and love movement that would spring out of the art world in just a few years. Mary would tell Jack that nuclear war was not the answer and that human beings all over the world needed to have greater self-awareness and understanding for their fellow human beings. Jack would try to explain to Mary that that was all fine and good, but countries and leaders and armies didn't necessarily operate under such lofty ideals. And just as 20 years earlier, Jack would end the conversation by hitting on Mary. She would laugh and tell him he needed to grow up and stop acting like a hormone-driven teenager. There was no doubt Jack was in love with Mary. Their friendship had turned into a full-blown affair, and Jack even told one of his closest friends that he planned to divorce his wife Jackie and marry Mary within the next 2 years. Mary believed that the use of marijuana and LSD had helped her heal from the tragic death of her son. And with all the talk of nuclear war with the Soviet Union, Mary somehow got the idea that if all the world leaders would just evolve their minds through the use of LSD, then maybe, just maybe, world peace could be achieved. It was with this mindset that Mary told President John Kennedy about her healing and evolution through the use of taking acid with her friend and mentor, Timothy Leary. The more she explained her experience, the more interested Jack became. If he was interested in experiencing this for himself, she said she would be more than glad to help facilitate. They had smoked cannabis together before on his boat, but this was an entirely different matter, a revelatory endeavor that Jack said he wanted to explore. Kennedy wouldn't be the first high-profile individual to try LSD. Jazz musicians like Charles Mingus and John Coltrane did it in the 1950s, as well as actors Cary Grant and James Coburn. Mary was friends with Harvard professor Tim Leary, who stated on more than one occasion that Mary had approached him in the spring of 1962, revealing her plan to introduce LSD to a very prominent friend. Leary offered to help with the trip, but Mary demurred, as she said her friend was very well known and discretion was paramount. It would not be good for her friend if the world knew he was taking a trip on this new psychedelic drug. Leary trained Mary in how to conduct a safe acid trip and even gave her a vial with the powerful substance. By early '63, Leary had good reason to believe that Mary was successful in achieving her goal. At one point, she even called Leary on the phone and told him that her friend had started to change greatly and that the powers that be were concerned because he couldn't be controlled anymore. She then stated that she was very concerned for her own safety and told Leary to be very careful. Between 1962 and into 1963, Mary had spent so much time at the White House that President Kennedy's secretary, Evelyn Lincoln, said Mary Meyer was here so much it was as if she was part of the furniture. If legend is empirical truth, then the episode would have occurred most likely in the summer of 1963. At a time when Jack's wife Jackie was out of town. It has been documented many times that while Jackie was away, Jack would have women stay over. He and his brother Bobby and their friends would have pool parties in the White House, as well as lady friends who would keep them company. While we have nothing more than vague rumors and whispers from Secret Service and White House staff, we know the following to be true. Jack Kennedy was a risk taker. For that matter, the entire Kennedy clan had a family motto: work hard, play hard, and push the limits. The 35th President of the United States had only achieved his lofty position because he had a certain fatalistic view of the world. Less than a year later, he would forego a bulletproof bubble on his car because he believed if it was your time to go, then there was nothing you could do about it. This was a man who was given the last rites by a priest on 3 different occasions and survived. He smoked, he drank, and he flirted with danger on a regular basis. And in the search to heal something broken deep within his psyche, he went through a string of casual romantic liaisons that would make a sailor blush. Mary Meyer, being deeply wounded by the loss of her 9-year-old son and the breakup of her marriage, had believed that if she could be healed by the use of psychedelics, then maybe it would help President Kennedy and in turn save the world from nuclear annihilation. It has been stated by many Kennedy close friends and associates that while Jack was in a romantic relationship with Mary, the president looked at her differently than his other women. Whether it was because she didn't need him to do something for her, or maybe just because she held him accountable and was willing to tell him no. He actually respected her. He valued her opinion and would listen when she gave him advice. If Mary and Jack did take their acid trip together in the summer of '63, then that would certainly explain the highly unusual and earth-shaking American University speech that Kennedy gave on June 10th, just 5 months before he was assassinated in Dallas. Kennedy was a war hawk president when he took the office in 1961, but by the summer of '63, something had changed in him. Was it surviving the Cuban Missile Crisis that almost ended the world as we knew it? Or was it the advice and pharmaceutical assistance he received from his paramour, Mary? The consensus of most who come through an experience with LSD is to have greater understanding and empathy for the world around them. On June 10th, 1963, that was apparent in Jack Kennedy's sudden change of policy with the Soviet Union. The war hawk had turned into a dove of peace. Something the military-industrial complex would, without a doubt, take issue with.
The United States, as the world knows, will never start a war. We do not want a war. We do not now expect a war. This generation of Americans has already had enough, more than enough, of war and hate and oppression. We shall be prepared if others wish it. We shall be alert to try to stop it. But we shall also do our part to build a world of peace where the weak are safe and the strong are just. We are not helpless before that task or hopeless of its success. Confident and unafraid, we must labor on, not towards a strategy of annihilation, but towards a strategy of peace.